The great hall of the Galactic Council shone with silver light. Tall pillars made of crystal reached toward the high ceiling, glowing faintly with blue energy. Around the long round chamber, ambassadors from dozens of alien worlds sat in their chairs. Their robes shimmered, their eyes moved nervously, and their voices buzzed in low tones. Every race was present. The reptilian Terak with their hard scales. The insect-like Chelari with their clicking voices. The long-eared, graceful Valar nobles who ruled the largest empire in the galaxy. And, sitting at the farthest edge of the chamber, the smallest group of all, humans. They were new here. Humanity had been invited to the council only 10 years ago. 10 years was nothing for most species, but for humans it already felt like a lifetime. Many aliens still did not trust them. Many still remembered the wars, the rumors of how humans fought even when hopeless, how they never surrendered. 2. Some humans were dangerous. To others, they were simply strange. Among the humans sat a tall officer in a plain, dark uniform. His hair was short, his face scarred, and his eyes calm but distant. He did not speak to anyone, not even the other humans. He kept to himself, standing near the wall like a shadow. His name was Commander Elias Ward, and he was the one the princess kept watching. Princess Serenia of the Valar Empire was young by her people's standards. Only 90 years old, though she looked like a human woman in her 20s. Her silver hair flowed down her back, and her long eyes glowed with pale light. Most council members feared her father, the Emperor, but Serenia was different. She did not come to intimidate. She came to learn. Since childhood, she had studied the galaxy's many races. She loved history, languages, and music, but no race fascinated her more than humans. Their art was wild, their music full of emotion, their history full of pain and, yet courage. They were shorter-lived than most species, yet they burned brighter. When she first saw the human delegation, she expected them to bow, to be honored to speak with her. Most species treated her like a jewel, someone untouchable, but the scarred officer never looked her way. He bowed only when required, spoke nothing, and avoided her eyes. At first, she thought it was shyness. Then she wondered if it was disrespect. But as days passed, curiosity burned in her mind. Why did this man, this human, keep his distance? The council meeting that day was long and boring. Arguments about trade routes, disputes over mining rights, endless speeches that circled back to nothing. The princess's attention drifted. She looked again at the human. Commander Ward stood in silence, his arms crossed, his gaze fixed on the floor as if he were listening to something far away. Her advisor, Lord Karen, noticed her distraction. "Your Highness," he whispered, "you should not stare at the human. They are unpredictable, dangerous." Serenia tilted her head. "Dangerous? He has done nothing." Karen's lips curled. "That is what makes them dangerous. They wait, they watch, and then they strike." Serenia smiled faintly. Or perhaps they simply think before they act. Her advisor did not reply. When the meeting ended, delegates rose and walked out in groups. The grand hall buzzed with the sound of footsteps, rustling robes, and alien voices. Serenia walked gracefully with her attendants, her silver gown flowing like water. But her eyes searched again for the human officer. She found him near the exit, standing alone. The other humans were already leaving, but he stayed behind as if waiting for them to go first. She made her decision. "Wait here," she told her guards. They looked shocked. "Your Highness," she raised her hand. "Do as I say." And then she walked across the hall, her steps quiet but confident. All around, aliens watched in silence as the princess of the greatest empire approached a lone human soldier. "Commander." Ward noticed her too late. When he looked up, she was already standing before him. Her eyes, bright as moons, met his. "You keep your distance," she said softly. Ward gave a short bow. His voice was calm, steady. "Your Highness." She studied him for a moment. Up close she could see the lines on his face, the scar across his cheek, the tiredness in his eyes. He was not young, not old either, but his presence was heavy, as if he carried something unseen. "Why do you avoid me?" she asked. "Every day I see you turn away. Do I offend you?" Ward did not answer right away. His silence stretched. For a moment, Serenia thought he might simply walk away. Finally, he said, "No, Princess. You do not offend me." "Then why?" She pressed gently. He looked at her, and in his eyes she saw not anger, not fear, but something else. Something like sorrow, but he only shook his head. "It is not my place." And then he stepped aside, letting her pass, his face unreadable. Serenia stood still, watching him walk away into the shadows of the corridor. For the first time in her life, someone had refused her without disrespect, without fear. He had simply stayed away. Her heart beat faster. The mystery grew deeper. That night, as she sat in her private chambers, she thought of the human again. She remembered his scar, his silence, his eyes. She remembered the way he bowed but gave her no answer. Why does he hide himself? She whispered to the stars outside her window. The galaxy was full of voices, loud, demanding, proud. But sometimes, she realized, silence spoke louder. The next day, the council chamber buzzed louder than before. Discussions of trade agreements, fleet patrols, and border disputes filled the room. Princess Serenia walked among the delegates, but her thoughts were elsewhere. She could not stop thinking about Commander Elias Ward, the human who had refused to answer her yesterday. "Why does he act like that?" she asked Lord Karen quietly. "Act like what?" Karen replied, raising an eyebrow. "Like he does not care for me or anyone," she said. "But it is more than that. He hides himself." "Why?" Karen shrugged. "Humans are strange creatures. They keep their own secrets. Some say they are stubborn, others say they are clever. Maybe he simply does not wish to speak." Serenia shook her head. "I do not believe it. There is something more. I will find out." Even as she said it, she knew it would not be easy. Humans were not like other species. They did not bow to rulers, did not flatter, and did not follow traditions blindly. They were small and fragile compared to most galactic species, yet they survived wars, famine, and countless disasters. There was a strength in them that others often overlooked. After the council ended that day, Serenia requested a private meeting. Some of the council staff were hesitant, warning her that humans could be unpredictable, even dangerous when provoked. But Serenia would not be stopped. She found Ward standing in the same corridor where she had first approached him. He had not expected her to return. "Princess," he said quietly, bowing once. "Commander Ward," she replied. Her voice was gentle but firm. "I have a question for you, and I want the truth." Ward's expression did not change. "I have nothing to hide," he said, but his eyes betrayed caution. "Then why do you avoid me?" she asked, looking directly at him. "Every day you walk away. You do not speak. You do not engage. Why?" Ward looked down, silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice low and steady. "I avoid not because of you. I avoid because of what I remember. What I cannot forget." Serenia's curiosity sharpened. "Remember what?" she asked softly. He did not answer. Instead, he turned slightly, as if to leave. But she stepped closer, blocking his path. Her eyes, glowing faintly in the corridor light, met his. "Please," she said, "I only want to understand, nothing more. Do not hide from me." Ward took a deep breath. Finally, he said, "It is complicated. You would not understand." Serenia smiled faintly, leaning closer. "Try me." Ward's eyes met hers, and she saw a shadow behind them, a weight of experience, sorrow, and loss. He finally spoke, slowly, each word deliberate. Humanity has suffered because the galaxy ignored us. Our people fought wars they did not start. We lost friends, families, entire colonies. And when we reached out for help, no one came. The Council, the empires, all of them watched and waited. And we survived anyway. That is who we are. That is why we endure. That is why I stand here, alive, while so many others did not. Serenia listened, stunned. She had read about human wars, yes, but she had never imagined the depth of their suffering. The human before her was not merely avoiding her. He carried the weight of an entire species' history. Ward continued. So I avoid unnecessary attachments. I avoid distractions. I avoid those who might ask for loyalty, friendship, or trust. Because trust, once broken, is hard to give again. Serenia did not speak. She had never heard anyone talk like this. Not a Valar noble, not a Teyrak commander, not even her own father. Humans were not known for restraint. Yet here was a man whose silence held power, whose words carried truth heavier than any speech she had ever heard. See, she said finally quietly. Ward nodded, almost imperceptibly. I stay away, Princess, not from you personally, but from all who might fail my people again. For a moment, there was silence between them. The hum of the council corridors faded. Only the sound of their breathing filled the air. Serenia's mind raced. She had expected anger, arrogance, or indifference. Instead, she found honesty, sorrow, and a quiet strength that resonated deeply with her. Then you are human, she said softly. You carry your people with you, always. Even here, even now. Ward's eyes flickered. It is what we do. It is why humans survive. We endure. And when the time comes, we act. Even against impossible odds. The princess felt a shiver. Humans, she realized, were not weak. They were not simple. They carried history in their bones and courage in their hearts. To underestimate them was a mistake many species had already made and would likely make again. Over the next few days, Serenia observed Ward carefully. She watched how he walked through the council halls, how other species looked at him with fear or curiosity. They whispered about humans, about their unpredictable nature, their stubbornness, their resilience. But none knew the truth of what he had told her, the story of survival, of suffering, of courage that ran through every human colony. She tried to engage him again. Sometimes she smiled, nodded, or offered polite words, but he remained distant. She realized that his silence was a shield, a carefully chosen boundary. Humans did not give their trust lightly. It fascinated her more. She had expected humans to be brash, loud, or desperate for recognition. Instead, they were calm, patient, and unyielding when needed. And Ward embodied that perfectly. One evening, Serenia found herself in the observation deck, watching the stars drift past the council ship. The galaxy stretched endlessly, filled with worlds, fleets, and mysteries. Ward entered quietly, pausing when he noticed her. Princess, he said softly. Commander, she replied. I hope I do not disturb you. You do not, he said, his voice even, but carrying a faint note of weariness. They stood side by side, looking at the stars. Silence fell, but it was not uncomfortable. It was filled with unspoken understanding. Serenia finally asked the question that had burned in her mind since the first day. Why do you stay away from me? Not just from me, but from others, even your own allies. Why? Ward looked at her, his gaze steady. Because trust is earned, not demanded, not given lightly, and because I have seen too many die when trust was betrayed. I cannot risk that again. Serenia felt the weight of his words. She had never heard honesty so raw, so unshakable. Most species spoke in politics and flattery and threats. Humans spoke in truth, even when it hurt. Your words, she whispered. They are not meant to wound, but to teach. Ward said nothing. His eyes returned to the stars. And for the first time Serenya understood. His distance was not cruelty. It was a lesson in resilience, in caution, in strength. Humans survived because they endured. Not because they conquered, not because they feared, but because they measured, waited, and acted when the time was right. That night, Serenya wrote in her private journal. She had never done this before, not about someone else, not about anyone outside her empire. Humanity is different, she wrote. Not loud, not arrogant, not reckless. They survive where others fall. They endure where others flee. And yet, even in their silence, they teach more than words ever could. And she realized something else. The human officer, Elias Ward, had taught her more in a few days than her tutors had in a lifetime. He had shown her the strength of restraint, the power of truth, and the courage it took to carry the weight of an entire species. For the first time, the young princess felt a question forming, a question she would one day ask, a question she feared might have no answer. Why does he stay away? And yet she knew deep down the answer would not be simple. The human officer had his reasons, his burdens, and his past. And until he chose to speak, she could only wait and observe. Even in avoidance, humans had a way of leaving their mark. The council chamber was quiet, but not empty. Princess Serenya sat at a high window watching distant stars drift past the council ship. Even from here, she could see the glittering fleets of other species moving through space like living rivers of metal. Yet despite the grandeur around her, her mind was elsewhere. Her thoughts were on the human officer, Commander Elias Ward. The more she observed him, the more she realized how much the council misunderstood humans. They labeled them as reckless, unpredictable, and weak. Yet every time she saw Ward, she felt a quiet strength emanating from him. It was not a strength of size, technology, or weapons, it was something else. Something deeper. She decided to learn more. If she truly wanted to understand why Ward kept his distance, she had to know humanity itself. She requested access to human records, histories, and war archives. Some of the council staff hesitated. Human history, they said, was messy, violent, and full of tragedy. But Serenya insisted. She wanted truth, not the sanitized stories that others preferred. The archives were vast. Holographic displays projected battlefields, colony maps, and the faces of leaders long gone. Serenya traced human history from the first steps into space to the present day. Wars, rebellions, and disasters, humanity endured them all. Not through numbers, not through overwhelming force, but through adaptability and sheer will. One story caught her attention. A small human fleet had been trapped near a star system controlled by a powerful alien empire. Outnumbered 50-1, they were expected to surrender, yet they fought using unconventional tactics, creative maneuvers, and relentless determination. Most ships were destroyed. Lives were lost. But the survivors escaped and returned to tell the tale. Serenya leaned back, absorbing every word. This was the humanity Ward had carried with him. The courage in hopeless situations, the refusal to give up even when defeat seemed certain. She understood why he avoided attachments. Humans had lost so much, and every loss was a weight on their souls. That evening, Serenya approached Ward in the corridor again. He was standing by the observation window, gazing at a distant star cluster. "Princess," he said quietly, nodding in recognition. "Elias," she said softly, "I've been learning about your people. The council hides so much, but the archives, they tell a different story." Ward did not look at her. He remained silent, listening. "I understand now," she continued. "You avoid forming bonds because humans have suffered. You carry the weight of your history." Ward finally turned, his eyes meeting hers. There was no surprise, no arrogance, only a quiet acknowledgement. "It is heavy," he said. "Some days it feels impossible to carry, but it is necessary. It is who we are." Serenya nodded. "Your people endure. They survive when others fail. And you are part of that. That is why you stand apart. That is why you stay away." He studied her for a long moment, as if measuring her understanding. "You see it," he said finally. "Not just my actions, but the reason behind them. Most would not." "I want to understand," she said. "I do not want to judge, I want to learn." Ward gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. For the first time, he did not step back. Over the next few days, Serenia delved deeper into human history. She read of colony worlds lost to cosmic disasters, of entire populations wiped out by hostile aliens, and of humans who, despite suffering unimaginable loss, rebuilt their societies. They did not beg for help. They adapted. They learned. They survived. One story moved her particularly. During a conflict with a technologically superior alien race, a human settlement was trapped. Supplies ran out. The aliens demanded surrender, promising safety in exchange for obedience. Most species would have given in, but the humans refused. They built devices from scrap materials, improvised weapons, and used their small numbers to launch daring attacks. Many died. Many ships were destroyed, yet the alien forces eventually retreated, unable to comprehend the humans' resilience and creativity. Serenia realized this was what Ward carried with him. Not hatred, not anger, but memory. Memory of suffering and survival. And memory shaped who humans were, how they acted, and why they kept their distance from others. One afternoon, she found herself in the ship's library, studying holographic footage of a human rebellion. Ward appeared in the doorway, quietly observing her. "You studied them closely," he said, his voice calm. "I am trying to understand," she replied. "Your people, they are stronger than anyone gives them credit for. I see it now." He walked closer, standing beside her. "It is not strength like yours or your people have. We do not command fleets of 1,000 ships. We do not rule vast empires, but we endure. And sometimes endurance is more powerful than weapons." Serenia nodded slowly. She felt a respect growing inside her, deeper than curiosity. Humans were not like the other species she had studied. They were fragile yet unyielding, small yet capable of shaping the galaxy through determination and courage. Ward's gaze lingered on her, faintly amused. "You understand more than most, but understanding does not always mean acceptance. Some truths are heavy, even when seen clearly." "I can bear weight," she said softly. "I want to." Days passed, and Serenia observed Ward more closely. She watched how he moved through the council halls, how other species reacted to him. Some feared him, some ignored him, others tried to provoke him. But Ward remained calm, silent, and unwavering. Even in a room full of chaos, he stood as a steady presence. She began to notice small details. How he would help a human delegate quietly when others did not see. How he avoided unnecessary conflict, but never backed down when his people's honor was at stake. How he carried himself, not as a ruler, not as a diplomat, but as someone who understood responsibility in its deepest form. Serenia realized she had been wrong to think humans were simply stubborn or reckless. They were deliberate, thoughtful, dangerous not because they sought violence, but because they refused to surrender when faced with impossible odds. And Ward, he was the living embodiment of that. One evening, Serenia entered the council gardens. The artificial sunlight bathed the flowers in warm gold, and alien birds chirped softly in the treetops. She found Ward sitting quietly on a stone bench watching the garden in silence. "Princess," he said, nodding once. "You have seen this garden many times," she said softly. "Yet you remain quiet, apart. Why?" He looked at her, expression calm. "Quiet is easier than speaking. Easier than explaining why you act as you do, or why you avoid others. Words are fragile. Silence is stronger." Serenia smiled faintly. "You surprise me, Elias. You are not what the council expects. You are more." Ward's gaze held hers. Humans have learned to survive in ways others cannot imagine. Some survive through courage, some through cleverness, some through silence. I survive through all of it. Serenya realized then that his distance, his refusal to engage, was not a rejection. It was protection. Protection of himself, his people, and perhaps even her, though she did not yet understand why. That night, Serenya wrote again in her journal. She did not usually write about others, but she could not stop thinking about Ward. Humans are unlike any species in the galaxy, she wrote. They carry the weight of history and loss. They endure when others would collapse. They act when others hesitate. And even in silence, they teach more than words ever could. Commander Elias Ward is their reflection. Silent, patient, unyielding. And yet, beneath it all there is courage and honor unmatched by anyone I have met. She paused, looking at the stars beyond her window. Why does he stay away? Perhaps one day he will answer. Perhaps not. But understanding him, understanding humanity, has changed how I see the galaxy. The stars glimmered in the endless void, distant and beautiful, but also cold and indifferent. And yet humans, small, fragile, determined humans, moved through that galaxy with strength that few could imagine. Princess. Serenya knew this now. The council hall was packed. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy filled the enormous chamber. Their voices rang in debate over trade, treaties, and territorial claims. But today, Serenya had other plans. She walked with quiet determination toward the center of the room, her silver robes brushing the floor. Her eyes scanned the crowd, finally settling on the lone human officer standing near the back, silent as always. Ward noticed her approach but did not move. He had seen this in her before. The calm, deliberate attention of someone who had already decided she would not be ignored. Princess, he said quietly, bowing as usual. Serenya did not respond immediately. She stepped into the center of the hall, where all eyes naturally fell upon her. She raised her voice just enough to carry across the chamber. I have a question, she said. Silence fell immediately. The council, used to debates and posturing, was unprepared for the sudden pause. A question that has weighed on me since I first met a human officer named Elias Ward. The room went quieter. Humans were small, unremarkable in size and technology compared to most species, yet Serenya's voice carried authority and intrigue. Every eye, alien and human alike, was on her. I ask you this, in front of all of you, she continued, her gaze fixed on Ward. Why does he stay away? Why does he avoid me and others? Why does he not engage when approached, when the galaxy seeks his people's counsel and wisdom? A ripple went through the crowd. Murmurs spread. Like a wave, aliens whispered to each other. Humans exchanged nervous glances. Ward remained still, hands clasped behind his back, face unreadable. Finally, Serenya stepped closer. Answer me, Elias. Not as a soldier, not as a delegate, but as a human. Tell me why you stay away. Ward's eyes flicked across the room. Every species was watching. Every diplomat waited, some with curiosity, others with judgment. He could have deflected, made a joke, or remained silent. Most would have expected that. But Ward did not act like most. He took a deep breath and his voice, calm and steady, filled the hall. I stay away, he began, because my people have suffered. They have fought wars they did not start. They have been abandoned when they needed allies. They have lost friends, families, colonies, entire worlds. And when we reached out for help, the galaxy watched and waited. He paused, letting the words sink in. Aliens shifted uneasily. Some looked embarrassed. Others fidgeted with their robes or instruments. Humans sat straighter, a mixture of pride and shame washing over them. I stay away, Ward continued, because trust, once broken, is hard to give again. I stay away because I will not allow my people to be betrayed, ignored, or used for the convenience of others. I stay away because silence, at times, is more powerful than words. And I stay away because humanity survives, not because of power, not because of armies, not because of diplomacy, but because we endure against impossible odds alone if necessary. The hall was silent. Not a sound came from any corner. The words of a single human had filled the chamber with truth heavier than any speech, heavier than the lies or flattery the council had grown accustomed to. Princess Serenia stepped forward, her eyes glowing faintly. "And yet," she said softly, "he is here. He stands among us. He does not run. He faces the galaxy, even though it has failed his people in the past. He stands because he chooses to endure, not because it is easy, not because it is safe." Ward's gaze met hers for a moment. The weight in his eyes was visible, the history of his people, the burdens he carried, the memories of loss. Yet in that gaze was also strength, calm, and courage that no empire, no fleet, no council could match. One of the alien representatives, a tall Teyrak commander, finally spoke. His voice was low, cautious. "Human, your words. You speak of history, suffering, and endurance. Yet, why confront the princess now? Why reveal your reason in public?" Ward's voice remained calm. "Because understanding must be seen, not whispered. Because the galaxy should not mistake silence for weakness. Humanity is not weak. We endure. And if others fail to understand, that they will learn it eventually." Serenia watched as murmurs spread through the hall. The council, long confident in their assumptions about humans, felt the weight of Ward's truth. Some aliens lowered their eyes, ashamed. Others leaned forward, curiosity burning in their expressions. No one laughed. No one mocked. The words of a human, small and unassuming, had shifted the atmosphere entirely. The princess smiled faintly, her gaze returning to Ward. "Do you see, Elias?" she said softly. "Even without raising a fleet, without wielding weapons, without demanding attention, you have made the galaxy listen. And not with threats, not with pride, but with truth." Ward said nothing. He only stood, silent yet, commanding as the room absorbed his words. Then softly he added, "I do not seek praise. I do not seek recognition. I only seek to protect my people, and to ensure that history is not forgotten. Silence is my choice. Truth is my weapon." The council had never experienced anything like this. The Valar nobles, usually proud and unshakable, looked at each other in shock. The Chilari delegates whispered among themselves, uncertain how to react. Even the humans seated quietly felt a surge of pride and awe for the one among them who carried the history of their species in his calm, measured words. Princess Serenia stepped closer to Ward, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "Your silence is your shield," she said, "and your voice, when it chooses to speak, is louder than any warship. I understand now why you kept your distance, and I respect it. I respect you." Ward met her gaze briefly, his face softening just a fraction. It was the first hint of vulnerability he allowed anyone to see. "Respect is earned," he said quietly, "and trust, even more so." Serenia nodded. "I will not demand it. I only seek to understand. That is enough for now." For the first time, the young princess understood something fundamental about humans. They were not the reckless, weak species the council had assumed. They were deliberate, cautious, and unyielding. They bore history as a weight, yet used it as a guide. They did not seek power for its own sake, but wielded it when necessary. And even in silence, they made themselves heard. The council continued around them, but Serenia and Ward existed in their own space. One had curiosity, one had history, one asked, one answered. And together, they showed the galaxy that understanding could be stronger than conquest, truth stronger than politics, and endurance stronger than fear. Finally, Serenia stepped back. "Thank you, Elias," she said, her voice carrying just enough for him to hear. "Your words, they will not be forgotten." Ward bowed his head slightly. They should not be. Humanity deserves that much. And more. The hall slowly returned to its usual hum. Delegates whispered among themselves, but now their whispers carried a new tone: respect, awe, and perhaps a hint of fear. Humans, they realized, were not to be underestimated, and the princess, watching Ward walk back to the edge of the chamber, realized something else. The answer to her question, why he stayed away, was more than personal. It was universal. Humans carried the weight of survival, and they bore it alone when necessary. Their silence was not weakness. Their avoidance was not disdain. It was history, memory, and strength in its purest form. She would never forget it. The council chamber was quieter than usual the next day. Not from absence, but from thought. Aliens from dozens of species walked slower, spoke softer, and looked around with new awareness. Commander Elias Ward's words from the previous session lingered like a weight that would not lift. Humanity had spoken, not with weapons, not with fleets, but with truth. Princess Serenia sat near the observation window, her silver hair catching the faint light of distant stars. She watched the galaxy drift by, feeling its vastness, its indifference, and its hidden dangers. Yet, amidst all this, she felt something she had never fully realized before: a quiet pride in the humans, and in Ward specifically. They had endured, suffered, and survived, and now the galaxy would see them for what they truly were. The day's sessions began with formalities. Trade negotiations, mining disputes, and territorial claims were discussed. But beneath the surface, everyone's attention drifted toward the humans. Their small delegation moved with calm assurance, observing, listening, and occasionally speaking. It was clear that humans had changed the perception of everyone present. Ward remained silent as usual, yet his presence carried authority. He did not need to raise his voice or demand attention. The mere fact that he had spoken truth the day before made him, and by extension humanity, impossible to ignore. Serenia approached him quietly during a break. "Elias," she said softly, "you have left an impression that even the oldest council members cannot ignore. They are still speaking of your words." Ward's expression was calm, almost unreadable. "Good. They should think. Humans are not reckless. We do not need to prove ourselves with weapons or fleets. We prove ourselves by surviving, by enduring, by acting when others hesitate." Serenia smiled faintly. "And yet many still see you as weak. They do not understand. Do you intend to teach them further?" Ward's gaze swept the room. "I intend to protect my people, and to show the galaxy that actions are not always measured in size or technology. Sometimes endurance, strategy, and courage speak louder than fleets of warships." Later that day, news spread across the council. A fleet of Valar explorers had reported a threat near the edge of the Empire. A rogue alien warship, heavily armed, had attacked unprovoked. Other delegates whispered fearfully. Many species panicked, debating how to respond, but the humans remained calm. Princess Serenia watched Ward closely. He did not rush. He did not raise alarms. Instead, he studied the reports, analyzed the data, and spoke in precise terms. "We have faced worse," he said quietly, "and we survived. This threat is serious, yes, but predictable. And predictable can be countered with planning, not panic." Serenia realized something important. Humans did not act out of fear. They acted out of understanding. They measured risk, calculated outcomes, and used their intellect to survive, even when others succumbed to fear or pride. The rogue ship approached the council vessel, scanning for weakness. Aliens panicked. Orders were shouted. Fear spread like wildfire, but Ward remained calm, silent, observing. He spoke only once. "Deploy drones. Use the environment. Make them fight where they are weak, not where we are strong." It was simple, almost understated, yet it worked. The humans executed his plan with precision. The alien warship, confident in its superior firepower, found itself trapped, outmaneuvered, and disoriented. Within hours, it was forced to retreat. No human ships were lost. Not a single human life was wasted. The council watched in disbelief. What they had expected to be chaos became a display of precision, strategy, and resilience. Humans had won, not with sheer force, but with intellect, endurance, and cunning. Princess Serenia felt a surge of pride. She had witnessed Ward's wisdom firsthand. She had seen the calm, the patience, and the unshakable strength of a human who carried the weight of his species' history. Now, the galaxy saw it too. She approached Ward afterward, quietly. You have made them see. Not as weak, not as reckless, but as capable, enduring, and cunning. They will not forget this. Ward shrugged slightly, almost dismissively. They will forget. Most always do. But some will remember, and some will learn. Dao, you care if they forget? She asked. He looked at her, his eyes steady. No. I care only that my people endure. The rest, the galaxy will learn eventually, and if they underestimate us, it will be to their peril. Serenia smiled. And yet, you remain silent in much of this. You did not boast. You did not demand praise. Boasting changes nothing, Ward replied simply. Action, endurance, truth, those matter. Words matter less. And humans, we have learned the value of restraint. The council convened a final session that day. Delegates spoke with a new tone, respectful, cautious, aware of the humans' presence. No one laughed at them. No one dismissed them. Even the most arrogant species spoke in measured words, considering their actions carefully. Serenia watched as Ward moved through the chamber. The small human delegation no longer seemed fragile. They were silent, yes, but powerful, in presence. The galaxy had seen the truth. Humans endured, humans survived. And when humans acted, they acted with courage, intelligence, and precision that few could match. The princess felt a deep admiration for Ward. His silence, his careful avoidance, his measured words, they were all part of the same strategy. Humans were not reckless. They were deliberate. They were a force to be respected. Later, in private, Serenia asked a question she had held back for weeks. Elia, why did you stay away from me all this time? Why did you avoid interaction when you could have spoken, engaged, or even shared counsel? Ward looked at her, expression calm, eyes deep with history and burden. Because trust is earned, he said quietly. Because my people have suffered when trust was given lightly. Because words alone cannot convey the weight of loss, endurance, and survival. I stay away. To protect myself, my people, and to remind the galaxy that actions, not proximity, define strength. Serenia nodded slowly, understanding. And yet today, your actions spoke louder than words. You have taught more than any lecture, any fleet, or any council meeting could. Ward's gaze softened slightly. Perhaps, but the lesson is not for me to claim. It is for the galaxy to understand. Humanity survives because it must, not because it asks permission. And if others forget, they will learn again, eventually. That night, Serenia recorded in her journal. Humanity is extraordinary, small, fragile, and yet unyielding. Their endurance is unmatched. Their patience is remarkable. And their courage, it transcends fear, pride, and politics. Commander Elias, Ward has taught me more about humanity in days than I could have learned in centuries. The galaxy underestimates them at its peril. She paused, watching the stars. I wonder, how many have forgotten, how many have dismissed them? And yet, I know, humans endure. And one day, the galaxy will remember the truth, even if it is through silence, avoidance, or necessity. The stars sparkled in the darkness, cold and distant. But humans moved among them with determination, courage, and quiet strength. And that, the princess knew, was something no empire could ignore, no council could dismiss, and no species could underestimate. Days later, Ward quietly gathered his small human delegation. "We leave the council now," he said calmly. "But let this be clear. Humanity will continue, we endure, we survive. And when the time comes, we act. Not for glory, not for recognition, but because it is necessary. And the galaxy will respect it, or learn it the hard way." The humans nodded in silent agreement. They did not need words of praise or applause. Their endurance, their strength, and their unyielding spirit spoke for itself. Princess Serenia watched from the observation deck as Ward's delegation left the council chamber. She felt a profound respect for the human officer and, through him, for humanity itself. The galaxy had seen them, not as weak, reckless, or fragile, but as a species of courage, endurance, and honor. And for the first time, she understood why. He stayed away. Not out of fear, not out of pride, but out of history, responsibility, and the quiet strength that only humans could carry. Ward's silence had spoken louder than any council, louder than any fleet, louder than any empire.